Hi, this is Mr. Ruterbusch. Today we're going to do bibliographic instruction, which is just big words that mean how do you find what you're looking for. We're going to look at how to do research on the internet. And what you'll find is people can say almost anything on the internet. So the big question is, how do you know who or what to believe? Like, this is me working out at the gym. Here's another picture of me throwing Chris Taylor in the 1972 Olympics and taking third. And here's another picture of me at a recent family reunion. Now, obviously, none of these are true. But how do you know? And the only way you can do that is by doing research. So, first of all, you have to know your search engines. How do they work? Well, Google works with algorithms. It takes how many times things have been linked to another web page and figures it all out and says, okay, this has been linked here, this is one people go to the most, so we're going to put that at the top. And we're going to put the next one, next most, it's going to be second hit, and all the way down. Now, what I suggest is, though, you use a whole bunch of different web pages. You can use Bing, you can use Metacrawler, you can use Yahoo, whatever you really feel like. And the weird part is they'll all give you different answers. And so it's really an advantage to keep doing that because they'll have different things at the top. And one might be number 22 and you never get to it on one search engine, but it's number 1 on the next. And people learned how to manipulate search engines. And they called it Google bombing. And what they did is people typed in the search, miserable failure, and then linked it to George W. Bush's web page when he was president. And so if you searched miserable failure, you always went to his web page. And they did it, it only took a couple thousand of them to figure it out, and they set it up, and it worked. And so Google had to change the way they did things in order to get rid of it. So how do you figure out what web page is at the top? Well, here's a web page that gives you tips on how to get to the top of Google. And they're tricks. Nowhere does it say, make a really good web page with really good information on it, and that you'll get to the top of Google. It says, here's a trick in order to fool Google, in order to make it so yours is at the top. And of course, the second way to do that, get to the top spot, is to pay Google money. They'll put your web page at the top if you get enough money. So don't always just go with the first hit and think that that is the best one. Go down a little bit, search a few of them, try different search engines. Don't always believe the top one is the best one. So how do you make an effective search? First, you have to know what you're looking for. So often I see students come in and they really don't know their topic. They really don't know what they're looking for, and so they put in broad terms, and that just doesn't work. So narrow your search down a lot. You need to know how to evaluate your search. If you're not getting what you want, you need to add and subtract terms. Make it so that Google's doing what you want it to do, because Google isn't smart. It doesn't know what you want. It's just doing what you tell it. So if you don't like the results you get, try a new search with new search terms. Try just changing 1 or 2 words, and it'll make a big difference in what you get. And as an example, I'm going to show you, we're going to search down a demon from my past. I was a huge Oakland Raider fan when I was a kid. They were in the second Super Bowl, and they lost badly to the Green Bay Packers. And everybody else was rooting for the Packers, so I rooted for the Raiders because I've always been that kind of a contrarian. And so they're playing the New York Jets in a game, and there's about a minute left. And I'm right there because, like I said, the Raiders are driving. I think they can beat the Jets. One of these two teams is going to go to the Super Bowl because they're both really good. And all of a sudden, with a minute and 5 left to go, the game stops. It goes off the TV, and on comes The Wonderful World of Heidi. And they stopped it all across the country. So unless you were at the game, you don't know how it ended up. There were only 3 stations back then. There was no ESPN. There was no way to look it up. It wasn't on the news that night because neither one of these teams are near Michigan, so it wasn't on the news. The paper the next day just had one line that said the Oakland Raiders win. It didn't tell how they won, what happened in the last minute and 5 seconds. And so I never found out. So I didn't find out for a long time how they won the game. So I'm going to do a search now where we're going to go back in and we're going to try and find out who or how the Oakland Raiders won this game. Now, the worst search for football game is the word football. Look at that. I got more than 4 billion hits when I put in the word football. Why is there so many? Because there's pro football, college football, high school football, pee-wee football, Canadian rules football, Australian rules football, and soccer in the rest of the world is called football. So there's no way that putting in one word search like that is going to give me good results. So I got to be more specific. I'm going to put in as 2 pro teams, NFL, so I put in NFL. I'm down to 1 billion hits. Heck, I shaved 3 billion hits off just by putting in NFL rather than football. That's still way too many. None of these are about games I'm looking for or the game I'm looking for. So I need to narrow it down more. And I'm going to put in the teams, which are Oakland and New York. So I got 4 terms there now. Oakland, New York, and NFL. Google doesn't know what I'm looking for. So it takes those and looks for any web page that has those 4 terms in it anywhere, any order, it doesn't matter. But I'm down to 74 million hits now. So I've gotten it down, narrowed it down quite a bit from the 4 billion I started at. But I can make this a lot better just by going in and putting in the teams and using something, a trick to make a better search is a quotation mark. When you put quotation marks around something, it makes it so the Google looks for it in that order, just that group. So if I go in there and I put in NFL, Oakland Raiders, New York Jets, I've gotten it down to 34 million hits. But it's getting a lot better. At least I got the right teams in there now. So now all the Google's looking for is the term NFL, Oakland Raiders, and New York Jets. I need to make it more specific than that. So I'm going to put in Heidi, because that was the name of the movie that came on and ruined everything for me. So I put in Heidi. I'm down to 117,000 hits now, which is actually quite good for Google. The top hit is Wikipedia. Never use Wikipedia as a source. Not only can anybody go in there and change it, but also there's no author listed. If there's no author, you cannot use it as a source. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and see if I can find other web pages here. We got Heidi Bowl, which is what it became known as. We got football game cut off the air, Heidi game remembered. Everything now is about the Heidi Bowl, and that's what I'm after. And I found out how the Raiders won with 65 seconds left in the game. They drove down the field, threw a long bomb for a touchdown, kicked off. The New York Jet guy fumbled the ball. Oakland Raider picked it up, ran in for a touchdown. So in 9 seconds, the Raiders scored 2 touchdowns and won the game. And so nowadays, because of Heidi, they've changed the rules. TV now lets the game finish, and then they go and start the movie, or now they go in and start the TV show. So this little girl changed everything. So you've completed your search. Now what? You need to evaluate the web pages. The first, I'm going to show you a quick way to do it, is to go in there and look at the URL. That's the Universal Resource Locator. And that's the thing that starts out www or HTTP. And you're going to look there for a personal name. You're going to look there for something that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't look like a good site. And those are the ones you can toss out right away. Another thing you can look at is domain names. Domain names are the .com, .org, .edu, and .gov are the 4 biggies. .com is a commercial interest. And what they're out there to do is sell you something. It might not be a product. It might be just their idea. It might be anything, because they can be created by anyone. And just think, every web page was created for a reason. They're just not there randomly. They're out there trying to tell you something. .org is an organization, and they vary widely in the amount of credibility. Some organizations are very reputable, some aren't at all. So be careful of .org. .edu are educational institutions, and that means colleges and universities, and they'll almost always be good because they're always watching each other and want to have keep their name in good standing. And .gov is almost always good because it's the U.S. government, federal, state, or local, and they always have people watching them. So if it's .gov, it's almost always good. So use that to weed out some of the stuff that you get, some of your hits you get. And if it has a tilde, a personal name, or ends in .net, be very, very cautious about what's in it. Then you're going to look deeper. As you go into and you start calling up the web pages and looking at them and reading them, use the 5 W's to figure out whether or not it's a good site. So first one is who. Who is or who are the authors? The authors are the most important thing. If you can't believe an author is reputable, then you cannot believe what they're writing, what they have in their web page. Second is when. When was the site created or updated? There are topics like technology or medicine that change constantly. And so you always have to make sure that you are keeping up on what's going on. So if it's older, it's 10 years old in technology, it's not worth much. What is the purpose of the website? Every website was created for something. It might be a serious subject. It might be somebody who's just a little out there. Or it could be that it's just there for a joke. Make sure that you know what the purpose of the website is. And where. Where did the website get its information? Where do the links go? If the person doesn't get their information from a good source, and doesn't link to good sources, then I'm not going to believe what they have to say. And why? Why are you choosing this site over other sites? And you're going to do that by the content that's in there and by who the author is, not because it's got great graphics or because the pictures are cool or the colors are cool. So make sure that you use the 5 W's to get a good site or get a good source. Then the most important tool of evaluation is who's the author. Is it Einstein, who knows tons about physics and E equals mc squared and things like that? Or is it going to be this guy? The guy on the right is Carroll Shelby. And Carroll Shelby went out there and he figured, he did the AC Cobra. He got the Shelby Mustang. He was the one that made the Ford GT that beat Ferrari at Le Mans back in the 1960s. He's incredibly knowledgeable how to make cars go fast. Einstein never learned how to drive. And so people have things that they're good at. Just because you're Einstein doesn't mean you're good at everything. And in this case, Carroll Shelby is much, much better and much more knowledgeable about how to make cars go fast. And so always pay attention to who the author is. Because these are two of the cars that Carroll Shelby made, the AC Cobra and the Shelby Mustang. But the problem is that everybody can look like Einstein. And they're all trying to make you believe that they know what they're talking about. It's up to you to figure out whether they really do or not. The second most important tool out there is the date. When was something published? And here's an article in the British Medical Journal. It's a very well-known journal and has a very good reputation. It's about smoking and lung cancer. And if you look at it, I could get a lot of information off this, except it was actually written in 1950. And so you're not going to get any information in here because this is 70 years old. But you're not going to get information about how to treat cancer or how lung cancer is, how to treat cancer or how cancer can be avoided. What you're going to find here is how do they find things out. Start over. Oops. So the second most important tool is when was it published. Here's an article about lung cancer in the British Medical Journal. And it looks like it's got a lot of stuff in it, a lot of information, but then you look at when it was written. It was written in 1950. And so while this is a great source, if you're writing a paper about when did people start to put lung cancer and smoking together as cause and effect, it's not going to be much good to find out new treatments and how to treat lung cancer and hopefully make it go in remission or make it go away. So you have to know when something was written. And usually, this is an article about breast cancer prevention in the National Cancer Institute. Usually you have to scroll down to find the information you need. So you just go down to the bottom of the page, and you can see this one was written on October 11th, 2019. That's pretty up to date, and so it's probably a good source to use in your paper because it's within the amount of time that This was written October 11th, 2019, so you know it's probably up to date and a good source. It's only a couple months old and something you could use in your paper. But it's not always stuff about technology or medicine you have to keep up to date on. Almost every topic is changing constantly. So within the last year, they found a new dinosaur fossils of the biggest T-Rex they've ever found. And not only do they figure he weighed almost 20,000 pounds, but he lived to be about 30 years old. And they didn't know how old they lived. And he had healed wounds and stuff all over him that they had never seen before. And so it's constantly changing all the time. You have to look out for that. So not only is there a new biggest T-Rex, something they had thought was a different pygmy species of T-Rex ended up just being teenagers of T-Rex. And they figured this out by going in and the dinosaur bones form rings, much like trees do. Depending on how much food the dinosaur got, the rings are either bigger or smaller. Just like trees will have bigger or smaller rings depending on how their growth cycle went that year. So these two dinosaurs they thought were pygmy Nanotyrannus ended up being 13 and 15-year-old Tyrannosaurus rex dinosaurs. And so this changed totally. This happened since January 1st. And so even though it's a millions of years old topic, it still is constantly changing, constantly getting updated. And one of the hardest things, though, to figure out is what if it's not clear who's right? The person on the left here is Thomas Jefferson. The person on the right is George Washington. Both founding fathers, both presidents for 2 terms. They were highly respected men, and yet they had vastly different foresight on how the government should work and how it should run. And they did things incredibly differently. And so how do you decide who's right or who's wrong? Could they both be right? Could they both be wrong? You have to figure this stuff out. And so I'm going to go over something now that is a big topic for the last 20 years or so about the MMR vaccines causing autism. MMR stands for measles, mumps, and rubella. And it's a vaccine that you start getting when you're very young. And on one side, you have the Center for Disease Control. They say vaccines do not cause autism. They've done lots of studies. They're very up to date on what they're doing. This is an outstanding organization for medical treatment and looking out for that kind of stuff. And they also have a mission, a pledge to the United States, the people of the United States. Their role is to look out for the people of the United States. And so they're not taking money from companies or anything like that. They get their money from the government, and they say that autism is not caused from the MMR vaccine. But here you have a doctor, Dr. Kelly Brogan, who says the CDC is actually covering up what's going on with autism and the MMR vaccine, and they should be called on it. And so what you have to do, just like I looked up stuff about the CDC and what their mission statement was and what they're after, you can look up Kelly Brogan, Dr. Kelly Brogan's stuff by going up here to the About thing to find out about her. What is Dr. Kelly Brogan? Is she an expert in the field? So Dr. Kelly Brogan is a psychiatrist, for women's holistic health psychiatrist. She graduated from Cornell. She got her Bachelor of Science from MIT, but she's board certified in psychiatry. Well, psychiatrists focus on the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of mental, emotional, behavioral disorders. So she deals with people who might have autism or who already have been diagnosed with autism. She's not a researcher who tries to find out what causes autism. While I was reading her website, there was a pop-up where you can get her new free ebook. She's trying to sell me something, and sure, it's for free. But what's saying is if you're getting a product for free, you are the product. There's something she wants from you. That's why she's giving you this for free. You can see that Dr. Brogan has written many things, but she has written nothing about vaccines causing autism. Now, she might be an expert in the field and may really be one of the people that everybody goes to find out. But nothing in her web pages tell me that she is. And so if I'm going to look at it and compare the CDC to Dr. Brogan, I'm going to go with the CDC. And if you do a little more research, the man who started the autism being caused by the MMR vaccine is Dr. Andrew Wakefield. And he wrote the article back in 1998. Since then, Lancet has retracted it because his methodology was all wrong. He's been found guilty of dishonestly doing tests on children, and he's been barred from practicing medicine in the United Kingdom. So if the person she's getting information from is Dr. Wakefield, or used to be Dr. Wakefield, then what her sources are not good. And so you have to really remember what a grace president said. And if Abraham Lincoln believed that, you gotta believe it's true. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget, this is me working out the gym. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully your research goes well. Again, this is Mr. Ruterbusch, and if you have any questions, please ask me.